But Matt, while we're starting to let people in and warming up, can you take us back to, we traditionally like to go back to the start of people's journeys and when creativity or design first played a role in that, whether that's childhood or, in education, school level, and just walk us through that early phase up until, finding your first role in the industry.
I guess growing up, design was always my strongest subject. I always used to sort of illustrate Simpsons cartoons, and I used to be massively into Futurama when I was a kid. And I did this like Futurama cover contest with Matt Groening, and I managed to win it. So like I got sent this like little robot, my name was in like print, this was when I was like, I don't know, 11 or 12 or something like that. So that was like my first full-on experience of like I don't know, designing something or creating something with like a really positive outcome. And then I don't know really, it just kind of a little bit spiraled from there. So going into school and sort of my education, like I said, design was always like number one. It just came out as my strongest subject. There was just something about it that I was really drawn to. Growing up, I used to watch a lot of sort of films. So I was always kind of exposed, looking back now, to sort of like animated type and like type intros and things like that. There's a few kind of films that still stick in my mind that I kind of love the intros, and I've never really forgot them. So I used to be obsessed with like films, with like Futurama and cartoons and stuff like that. Design was going really well. I jumped into my A-levels, tried to do psychology, biology. I think it was English lit and art. And I got like a U in most of them. And even in art, I got an F. So I still wasn't exactly doing well. But it was the strongest out of all of them. So I kind of dropped out my A-levels halfway through, and then jumped into a college in Loughborough, which is kind of where I'm from in the Midlands. Just did sort of graphic design, really, and art and design at this college in Loughborough. And I mean, it was amazing. It was just pure design and pure creativity, like every single module. It was just pure sort of visual, like stimulation. It was everything that I kind of sort of wanted to do. I mean, I still didn't exactly know what I wanted to do then, but I knew that design was kind of where I was heading. College was going great. I came out with like great results. It was really positive. I went to uni. So I did graphic design at Sheffield Hallam. That was pretty good as well. I wasn't exactly top of the class. I'd say more bottom of the class again. I don't know. It was just, I think I've spoken to a few people about this. It was just been, I don't know if it was my way of approaching briefs back then or kind of what these sort of tutors wanted from me, but everything I kind of delivered just didn't really click with kind of what was wanted. So at the time, I spent a lot of time doing personal projects. So I just do my own stuff. And I started doing that more than my sort of coursework and my uni work. I was just creating stuff that I kind of wanted to sort of illustrate just for myself. And I mean, this is ages ago. This is like over 10 years ago. So Instagram was just starting up back then. And people were just using it for like photos and I was at the time kind of. But I slowly started to sort of interject some really minimal like illustration pieces. It was like really random stuff. So there was kind of like that build up 10 years ago from there, just like starting to kind of share my own stuff. And I don't know, I think I kind of exposed myself to this world on the internet of like, there was websites like Dribble, and like, I don't know if Behance was around then, it probably was, but I was mainly like following Dribble, and there was all these designers kind of creating these cool illustrations, and it kind of like influenced me to start sharing my own stuff. So that's at uni, that's when I started sharing this kind of stuff. And then, I did like a year of advertising at uni. Again, it didn't sit well. It just, I don't know, I just didn't quite click with it. So then in my final year, I went back to just doing general graphics. Again, loved it, but I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't really do any internships at uni. I didn't do any work experience. I didn't enter any like design awards or anything like that. I wasn't really sort of fulfilled in that sense. So I just kind of like floated through uni, came out of uni with a 2-1. Not that any graduates watching that your sort of degree number matters, because it does not matter one bit, trust me. So I came out with a 2-1, which I was happy with, but I didn't really know what it meant. And then I started looking for jobs. So I moved back to Loughborough, to my parents' house, my mum's house. Kind of started doing some like little freelance bits, like really little sort of mascots and logos for all kinds of random stuff, mainly through Twitter at the time. And that was going all right. But, you know, it wasn't really enough. And I knew I kind of wanted to get into an agency to really get the sort of experience and just to see what it was all about. So I applied to loads. I mean, I had loads of interviews in London. Again, nothing really sat. I got offered a few things, but kind of at the time, it was just like the more financial side to try and live near London on these sort of pre-junior sort of budgets for these roles it was ludicrous. It just wasn't enough. And they weren't exactly roles I wanted to do. They were like sort of internal design for like a transport company and things like that in Potter's Bar. So I kind of just sat and just left it at home, just kept making stuff, kept applying to studios all around the country, just dropping portfolios and emails and stuff. And then a family friend said there was a role going in Nottingham for like a college in not city centre. So I applied for that, went in for an interview. It went really well, but I didn't get it. And I was crushed because I was kind of felt like I was running out of ideas here and sort of options to be in design. So that's when I started applying for like other jobs, like a managerial sort of grad scheme for the Majestic Wine Company. I was really just trying to do anything then. I needed to kind of get out of the house and just have some sort of career. And then the people I interviewed with in Notts recommended me for another role, which is the same role, but for a different college called Central College Nottingham at the time. Went in for the interview and I got the job, and that was kind of like amazing. It was just like, right, this is it then, I'm kind of in now. But that was for like it was an internal, so it was in-house design. So I was just doing stuff for the college. And then, yeah, that was kind of it. I was kind of running under a guy called Mike Condon. I think he's still sort of a creative director at one of the colleges in Notts. And yeah, he kind of sort of helped me get into the industry and sort of introduced me to design. And it sounds silly, but stuff like CMYK, printing, I didn't know any of that when I left uni at all. And this sort of helped me get into it. And yeah, spent a couple of years there, and then I wanted to get into a proper agency and, you know, do things where it was for different clients and really sort of get my hands in.
Wow, there's a lot to dissect there.
Yeah,
That's a great start. Just going right the way back, Matt, when you talked about winning that competition with Matt Groening, how did that come about? Because that sounded like, you know, that's a legendary name, isn't it? Just to,
yeah.
what was the
I used to subscribe to the comics. I've got one somewhere here. I used to subscribe to the comics. So these things, I used to get these delivered all the time.
Yeah.
And then they put this kind of sort of advert in saying we're running a cover contest. So I kind of just thought I'll enter it. Or my mum said to me, like, you should enter it or something like that. So I did, and there it is.
Oh wow!
Just this little illustration, and then you could win this like little tin toy robot, which again, of course, I have here. It's been on my desk ever since.
Brilliant.
Yeah, just a little reminder.
I think it's funny. I've spoken to quite a few animators, you know, sort of digital artists, and they all reference cartoons at an early age, whether it's like the front of cereal boxes or watching, you know, watching animated films of Wallace and Gromit, for instance, and how that subconsciously must play a long-term role in that. And I think there's one of the funniest comedy sketches I've ever seen was in Futurama. I reference it all the time to people. No one knows what I'm on about. It's way too long to go into now, but it's such a clever, you know, The Simpsons is clever, but I think that's equally, it doesn't really necessarily get as much respect, but a great foot in the comic books for most people. It's you know, as a child, it really is. And that's something that was quite ever present then in your early days.
I mean, as soon as I was allowed a TV in my room, as soon as my parents came to bed and checked on me to see if I was asleep, I always used to pretend to be asleep. And then when they went to bed, switch the TV straight on and start watching these sort of more adult cartoons that used to air on like Channel 4 past like 10 o'clock or whatever it was. So I was, you know, kind of instantly into that. And I mean, I fell asleep with the TV on every night. So my parents knew what I was doing, but they still let me do it. So I think it kind of played like quite a kind of good role, really. But there was a lot of influence in that. There must have been, because I mean, some of the type I do now looks like it's straight up like a kind of comic book or from like a sort of a show title. So it's definitely had some sort of like sort of deep sitting feeling in my mind that's kind of stayed there. It's quite nice. When
you see your work, especially like your website or Instagram, when you can see a hell of a lot together. Yeah, there's definitely that. There's some sort of Americana in there as well, which obviously you know, there's that quite big brush advertising sort of type approach.
Yeah,
with the colour as well, and just those early days of when sort of film etc. became in America. After the war, it was really bold and bright, wasn't it? It was a complete change.
Yeah.
But going through that's your education story there, Matt. I think there's quite a lot to sort of want to talk about, because that's the idea of that, the effort in art. I presume you didn't go through the idea of telling your parents that stood for fabulous or fantastic or anything like that.
No.
Trying to get away with that one. That's what I tried to do. But you having the F in that, and then at Sheffield, maybe not really finding it quite as stimulating. But in Loughborough, in between, there was this huge sort of epiphany for art and design again, or graphic design. Is there any truth to sort of say that is it maybe the way it was taught, or the way that you engaged with it, the way you were at that point?
Yeah, it was maybe kind of where I was at. I mean, I was never great at studying. I was never good at revising for exams. Everything's always been so much more visual for me. So I don't know. I mean, on my course as well, there was like 130 people. So to try and get, I don't know, constant or regular one-to-one time, maybe. I think it was harder. And it was really hard for the tutors as well, because there wasn't tons of tutors. So, you had like so many students spread across like, I don't know, 5 or 6 tutors. So I don't know. And yeah, I don't know. I just really wasn't into it as much. I'm a bit more of an introvert as well. So like in big crowds and stuff, I much rather kind of recede into the background. I'm not kind of like someone who wants to take like center stage and sort of be seen by everybody. So I'm sure that probably played quite a role in it as well, the less social side of it. So I wasn't more sort of willing to dive in and sort of talk to everyone and get involved with all the students. I kind of preferred to do my own thing. And that's kind of ran through, and it's kind of sitting with where I am now as well. So it's kind of like a common theme that's come and gone, but come back again now.
Yeah. So what was your work looking like in them days? Is it anywhere near what it is, what we see today, or is it much more traditional graphics, what we'd see in a sort of design agency,
Yeah. So I used to do like these line illustrations. I mean, I still sell them online. I've been selling them for like 10 years. They're basically buildings from like famous films or like in New York. And they're kind of like architectural drawings. They're just like front on illustrations, really thin lines of these drawings, really really intricate. And I was kind of making those at the time, but at the time I was making them to put things on my wall. So I was making them for myself. I was kind of looking for something to kind of like frame on my wall. So I started making my own art. And yeah, I kind of used to post stuff like that on Instagram. And it wasn't really until, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago that I started creating typography, that I was sort of illustrating type. That's only kind of started then. So beforehand, it was mainly making personal projects related around films and New York, because I mean, I just loved New York growing up, and I kind of went there in 2012 for like 3 months and kind of fell in love with it. So that started to feed into all my projects. So I do like a set of badges based on buildings in New York. Again, like all these projects, they're on Behance. You just have to go to the very bottom of my stuff and they're there. They're sort of really old and aging, but yeah, it was kind of completely different type. Didn't really have like sort of a place really back then for me.
Yeah, no, that's a very difficult sort of space to be in, isn't it? It's trying to understand where you fit. I mean, I go through I feel like I go through that virtually every other hour at the minute. Yeah, but it is a constant struggle, isn't it? It's to try and understand what especially when you go a bit deeper than just creating something to sell or something to get on. Trying to understand what you're trying to achieve in the long term. That's quite a difficult place to be and try and overcome. So how did you just sort of have to take that on a day by day sort of process and sort of analyze it as you went along?
Yeah. I mean, like, I guess even when I was in the agency that I was last at, like way before I was thinking about going freelance, it was always on my mind, like, I don't know where or what I'm going to do in the future. I don't know where, am I going to start to phase into try and be a creative director somewhere, or an art director, or, all these sort of like terms for job positions. I didn't really have a clue. So I don't know. And I never really felt fulfilled when I was at any of these jobs, apart from my last job. I didn't feel fulfilled in a sense of like what I was creating in the daytime. It wasn't what I wanted to be doing. It wasn't like creative enough. So that's when I was making more stuff outside of work and doing these passion projects, hoping that, subconsciously, like one day I could just be doing these for a living, like whatever this passion project is, I could be getting paid to do this. I think that was probably the overall goal, but I mean, I didn't have a clue. There was plenty of times when I was lost, and I've only really found myself in the last 2 years properly as to what I kind of want to do, and that's by fluke, really.
Yeah, and do you think that maybe the where you're at now has always been in you? So the idea of maybe applying to a graphic design agency, so to speak, always came with some sort of negative, because it can be quite conformist at times. I've worked, I think the industry likes to portray this very liberal and open sort of, football tables and, these cultures that exist that sometimes maybe they don't as much as people like to think. But for someone like yourself who, when you see your work, it is very stylized. So it doesn't necessarily fit within a client-bound agency where things are needed yesterday and it's got to follow very strict guidelines, and it can just be a bit like you're being shackled all the time creatively. Do you think that was something that maybe grated in you, that you just had to let it out, basically?
Yeah. I mean, it still happens now, even with doing like full-time day work, even in the evening. This was the same back then. If I'm just sat there, and we're like watching a film or watching TV, all I want to do is make stuff. And it was the same back then. I just wanted to make something. I wanted to keep creating stuff. And I don't really know. It's weird. I don't really know where it kind of came from. It just happened, and it just sort of manifested, and it became stronger and stronger. And it just like, it got to the point where I was doing stuff before work. I started making stuff. If I was up an hour earlier than I was supposed to, I'd just jump on my laptop, make stuff. Instead of resting or just like relaxing into the morning, I'd make stuff. And then, you'd go into the day job at some kind of agencies, or especially like in-house, because you're restricted to one brand. And it's all the same in a way. It's just, it's the same kind of stuff. And it was never enough kind of thing. And so, I don't know, all those different styles and all these sort of different roles. I mean, they've all helped me today, like seeing what it's like to be in-house for one brand, seeing how it's like to work for like startups, and then the next level up, seeing how it's supposed to be kind of working for, like these big sort of global brands, that big entertainment brands, and then leaving that and doing it just for yourself and just you doing it. It's all helped build up, like all that experience is stacked up, and it's just worked somehow.
I almost think it's like we're all pretty much scrapbooks, aren't we, of experiences?
Yeah.
Eventually just keep on calling upon those things when you're in the present, and you never know where that might take you. But just going back, mate, you mentioned something about the qualifications coming out of university and how that really didn't matter in terms of it being a sheet of paper with numbers on it. We do, like I was saying to you before this, we originally was designed to sort of focus or be aimed at students, graduates, and early stage pros. Obviously, that falls in perfectly with that demographic. What do you mean by that not really making any difference? Is that?
I don't know. I think in my mind, I feel like the university grade is very subjective to the tutors and to who marks your work. Whereas in the real world, it's more about how you apply your skills and what you visually create. Just because you might come out of uni with like a first, it doesn't necessarily mean you have all the knowledge and every project you're going to jump on, you're going to sort of ace. I just feel like it's just a number, and no agencies I went to apply to asked for what degree I got, or asked for was it a 2-1, was it a first? Even though I put it on my CV, it was never asked. And I mean, I know designers who didn't go to uni, they went to colleges. Some didn't even go to college, and they're doing just fine. It's obviously it's important to try at uni, and it's how you get experience, but I don't think you need to get hung up on that number. As long as you start to get some knowledge of the industry, it's if you I think being quite visual and being quite hands-on and being able to make stuff, it does help. So that seems to help more than just this number, really.
I think that's really reassuring for people that are tuning in, that are in that phase, because of all the levels of education, I think there is a lot of pressure on. Let you show your parents or what you do with it at the end. It's sort of not necessarily the be all and end all, is it? It's
no.
Maybe it's a show of trying, but not necessarily.
I mean, I'm sure it matters for different subjects, maybe like accounting or things where it's much more, I don't know, academic in a sense of sort of like, I don't know, thinking and sort of maths, English, that kind of thing. But I feel like when it's design, it's more visual. So it's, I don't know. Yeah, I don't think it matters as much.
A bit more leeway though, isn't there? After your first role at the college, where did you head after that? Did you go to London in the end, or was it just a price point just put you off?
Yeah, just a price point, and the kind of roles I was going in for weren't really appealing. One was for like a UX UI designer, and I kind of went into the office, and it was like a dark room with like rows of tables. Everyone was like plugged in. I had my interview. It was just a bit, I don't know, the vibe kind of felt off. And then the other ones, I was again, this kind of feeds into that, the what design is to me. But I was going to these interviews in a full, almost like a three-piece suit. And I feel like if you need to go to a design job in a three-piece suit, it's probably not the best design job to go for. It's not a job. I don't think you need to be suited to do a design job. It's not, if you're sat there suited at a desk doing design, I don't know, in my head, it just doesn't connect. So I was going to these roles in like full suits, and they were for quite kind of corporate things. I get, like, if you work in like a corporate office, you kind of got to dress the part, but it just never worked for me. And so it kind of just put me off. And I just gave up kind of applying for London, and then I started to find roles other places. And then at the time, my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, she went to Leeds Uni while I went to Sheffield, and then she got a sort of grad scheme at Morrison's in Bradford up in Leeds. So I was going up every weekend, and I'd started to hear about these really good agencies, and that's when I started applying to them. And then I managed to get my first role up in Leeds at a sort of design agency, which was cool.
What sort of age? What sort of timeline are we talking about there? In terms of years?
So when I left uni, it was probably 6 months until I got the job at the college. Yeah. And then I was at the college for maybe 14, 15 months. And then I went to this agency.
And that was roughly 10 years ago?
Just past 2013. So 2013, I left uni.
Because like I was saying before this, we've spoken to a lot of agencies outside of, internationally outside of London, which has taken us to some of the other bigger areas in Bristol, Manchester, Wigan Way. But Leeds and York and Bradford, they seem to be cropping up quite a lot with different people doing different things, and people that originated there and have stayed in the area but gone to other parts of the north. Is there a real strong community sort of essence when you're in that, or is that just from an outsider looking in?
Yeah, I think there is. I think there's, I don't know, the creative scene seems to be like growing and growing. It's it's part of what sort of drew me to Leeds, apart from my kind of girlfriend living there at the time, because there's agencies like Build and Robot Food and Analog in Leeds who do like these insane projects. And then, like you say, you've got Manchester, which is absolutely packed full of agencies as well. So I don't know, it just felt like quite a good, it kind of felt like the creativity of London, but not in London, but spread across a few different cities, with all these different options, just not within that London bubble or that sort of London price band, or I feel like it's like another world when I go down to London now, because I spend so much time up in the north where I live. So it just felt like it was this sort of contained creative bubble, and it is very communicative around here, I feel.
I always felt I don't want to do any disjustice to London, because it has its own merits and its own own sort of economy, own sort of its own little country in some ways. But I always found a lot of the work of, say, from the Midlands and the North, the agency is much more accessible and a bit more engaging, and there's a bit more openness to a lot of it. When you mention something like Robot Food, you don't necessarily always know who's behind a lot of things, but the packaging that they do is it pretty much fills most supermarkets.
You see the stuff everywhere.
Until you realise it's them, and then you sort of see where it started and how it's grown, and the depth that they go into now of each project is quite. It's just nothing short of inspiring. There's no way you can't be motivated by that, and it's great to see it happening, in Leeds, and then all the other towns and the cities that orbit that. It must, and things like Channel 4 come into the area, and all a real uprising of creativity, isn't it? putting it back in at the heart of, I think, everything. It sort of really shows that what can be achieved in a destination when you put that at the heart, and how people feel motivated, inspired, and
Yeah,
it really changes the a whole place, doesn't it?
yeah, and it's kind of nice because when I was at Analog, my last job, uh, because there's not loads of massive agencies in Leeds that are kind of really sort of excelling, but the kind of handful that there is, a lot of the designers, when they've had their time at one, they go to one of these other ones. So when I was at Analog, a few of the guys I worked with were from Robot Food, they were from VAS, they were from all these agencies, and they kind of all came together. So again, everyone, people know each other, and it's quite collective. It's nice, really.
Yeah.
It is very communicative, like I said.
But then,
Cool.
back to when you were in employment, what was the first sort of murmurs in yourself of wanting to go solo, freelance, or just start up business, agency? What was the trigger in that?
So I'd been doing odd jobs ever since I left uni. I'd been doing odd jobs for like family, friends, and it was mainly through word of mouth at the time, and that's kind of how in my head I thought you kind of got all these freelance jobs or whatever it was, and like I said, it was like the odd sort of branding, a bit of logo work, and yeah, I kind of kept doing it. I kept doing it throughout my agency roles, but we're talking like a logo a month, if that. It was hardly anything. And then as time progressed, and as I started making more stuff on Instagram and sharing more, getting more experience, by the time I moved to Analog, I'd started kind of sharing a lot more stuff on Instagram. I'd been starting to sort of play with type and sort of just create random stuff and post stuff out there, these passion projects. And then, yeah, when I was at Analog, it all really started with these kind of animated stickers that I do on Instagram. So I started messing around with those, posting them out there. They started trending, and in my head it was like, well, this is kind of working. I just kept making them, and then that's when kind of freelance jobs started popping in. But we're talking like bigger companies like Giphy and agencies in America. So like these people were coming to me. And at the time, I spent over 2 years working at Analog, so I was doing odd freelance kind of jobs. In my second year, I started to set myself up as a business because these briefs were kind of getting bigger, the budgets were getting bigger. But because I was working full time at Analog, it kind of the main problem was the sort of balance. So probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 months before I really decided to leave and think about going freelance, I was doing this sort of internal video for Netflix in America, which was amazing. It was like a really cool typography piece. It was like 8 minutes long, all these cool sort of titles, like a really sort of animated thing. And it was all internal. So it was never something I could shout about or share because of NDAs and everything. And I was doing that, but because I was running on their time and because it was such a big project, they kind of wanted to be on chat with me whilst I was doing it. So this went on for like a week and a half, and it quite literally kind of mentally broke me. I would get up at 6 a.m. or 5:30 to start working at 6, do 2.5 hours, finish at 8:30, have some breakfast, shower, jump on with Analog at 9 as we're working from home, do my day job. If I had like an hour at lunch, I'd probably do like half an hour on this project, come off 5:36, have a break for 10 minutes, and then flat out through till 12 or 1 a.m. And this went on for like 2 weeks. And it mentally broke me. I mean, I don't know, I felt emotional, I felt upset. It was amazing to be doing this project, but like, a week in, I was exhausted. And it just hit me in like waves of emotion. Like I'd wake up to like 30 emails with like comments on the project, and throughout the day I'd just be tired. I finished that job basically, and I was like, I can never do that again. I can't do both of these things. But if another job comes in like that, there's no way I'm going to say no to it. So I need to decide what's going to give. Either I'm going to stop doing these freelance jobs and say no to them, or I'm going to go full-time freelance. And at the time, these jobs were coming in, I was saying no to stuff. So it was kind of like that kind of like turned sort of the tide because it mentally broke me that I can't do both of these things and I can't do them both well. So yeah, I sort of spoke to Barry at Analog, who is the sort of creator of Analog and the director of it. He was really open with me all the time, you know, always kind of checking in on me. And I said to him, like, I think I'm kind of going to do it. And he was all for me. It was, you know, it was a really positive kind of way to leave. It was the best circumstance, really. But yeah, it was that one job. Sorry, Netflix, but it broke me. Absolutely broke me.
I can't imagine them being on call while you're doing it.
It was just, yeah, it was just hard because their day was starting at like, you know, 4 o'clock in the evening for us. So I'd be straight on Slack. I'd have 2 Slack channels running, one with Analog, one with Netflix. And then, yeah, I just switched from one to the other, and it was just ongoing. And because it was like a big kind of video, I had to render it at the end of every day. And because I've only got like an iMac, it took an hour to render. So even when I finished at 12, I then had to sit there for an hour whilst the blue bar rendered. And then I had to upload it, which took another 40 minutes. So it was just,
life.
Yeah, it was horrible.
I remember when you used to have, you could use all your shortcuts and everything like fluently in Adobe. Like,
yeah,
you could do it in your sleep, and then the second the client stands behind you, it just like, where's it all gone? It all just disappeared. And then looking at you, just going like a chimp in front of a
yeah.
But yeah, the idea of having someone is because those clients, they naturally come with they come with like gravitas, don't they? Because of the size of them.
Yeah.
And then that impacts you even more, doesn't it, for some reason? But just going back to like when you were first dropping things onto Instagram, how long was that you were doing that before you started to get inquiries and you started a bit of a timeline, just so, because I think there's also a tendency to sort of see or hear that sort of stuff and then go, well, I'm not getting this, I'm not getting any, but people have only been doing it for maybe a couple of months when a lot of people doing it for years, haven't they? Before?
Yeah. I mean, because I've been quite lucky because I've seen Instagram change from its very beginning, from when the icon on your iPhone was like a little Polaroid camera. I've seen it from back then. And yeah, back then I was just uploading photos and a bit of work. I mean, I only had a couple of hundred followers who were like friends and family and people I was going to uni with. And then when I left uni, I did like 36 days of type. I think that probably kicked me into kind of doing type and creating type and thinking about letter forms. So the first year I did that, I got featured on day one on the letter A. And then I got like, you know, a couple of thousand followers from that. And then I kept doing it. And, you know, it built quite a following from 36 days of type. But I wanted to keep creating stuff because I quite enjoyed, like I said, making this kind of new stuff. So I just kept kind of uploading stuff. And this was when I first moved to Leeds. So it was 6 or 7 years ago, maybe. And then I was making stuff, uploading it. It was going all right. I didn't really think anything of it. And then I don't know, it just started to pick up pace as I was uploading more. And as these kind of stickers started to become more trendy, it wasn't even particularly from features or anything like that. It just organically picked up. But I mean, I was posting every day. I was making stuff every single day. It's mainly grown over lockdown. I mean, when I started lockdown, again, like I said, it was a couple of thousand people following me. But because I had more time, I was making daily stickers. So I was constantly uploading stuff, almost spamming people so they couldn't ignore me, just making stuff, making cool stuff. And then, it's like I said, it's only in like the last 2-3 years, it's gone from there to kind of where it is now.
Growing fast, isn't it? Your page in terms of
I mean,
the development of you as well seems to have I've followed your work for quite a while now, and not just because of this, in the past as well. I think from where it's those early days to sort of the understanding of the craft, from my perspective, seems to have just excelled, no end. Again, I presume that's just practice and just experimentation and all these things.
Just finding something that kind of works for you. I mean, there's a few designs that I kind of follow, and they've had a similar kind of journey to me some even in the last 6 months. There's a guy called Cheers Jack who you've probably seen on Instagram. I don't per se follow him, but I've kind of been seeing his stuff pop up. And he's gone from like 0 to like 40-50K in 6 months or something ridiculous, just by posting fun, quirky posters and things with their smiley faces on. And yeah, I guess it is just practice. It definitely was for me, because I tried all these different styles. I tried illustration, branding, logos, kind of all of it. But then it's only when I started to apply motion, because I learned motion in my own time, to lettering and typography that I'd been creating. But that's when the two just came together, and that's literally what my career is now. Oddly,
because I hear a lot of people sort of saying about finding your niche and finding a space, but you've got to go through that that personal education process to understand where that is. And you can't just wake up one day and go, well, I'm going to be a kinetic typographer or a 2D experimentation. You've got to sort of keep on going at it. So is that something that you, from going away from what we see on screen in your private time, is that just endless amounts of bits of paper on the floor and banging your head against the wall, sort of getting things out working, or is it just, or do you find yourself in a flow now? You've got a bit more of a
it was just a flow. And I've just got like a MacBook, a laptop basically. And like I said, if it was just in the evening, my wife never minded, because she just didn't mind. She kind of understood I was trying to do stuff. I was trying to make something of kind of what I was doing. I'd just whip open the laptop and just make something. If I heard a random word on the TV, that's what I'd make. And that's literally how it has grown. I'd just find a random phrase or a random word, and just make something. I don't know. It's weird. Sometimes it was from a reference point, and then other times it just kind of came to me from something that I'd maybe seen. And then combining that with like color choices and all these different styles, because obviously I do a few different kind of styles of type. So, they've all kind of come from somewhere, but at the time they just came to me every day. It was like, oh, do something in this style, do something like that. And then, it's just not stopped. Even now when I'm freelancing, like yesterday I had like I finished one job at like 2 PM, and I was like, I'm not getting briefed in for anything until like later today, so I'll just make something. So just find some type, wrote the word alive, which I posted last night, and just started making it. And it's just been like that. But it's been like that every day for like over 2 years now. But it's not going away.
It must be an amazing feeling to have that sort of continual sort of stream. It's like you hear like songwriters talking about things, or filmmakers. When you're in that mode where it just seems to come quite naturally. It's an exciting thing, because there will be periods when it won't be quite like as fluent as that. So make the most of it. So when things like, if anyone's looking in that's interested in sort of building a career in this, when you talk about the clients that have come through seeing your work on things like Instagram, is that just start as I've never experienced that myself. I've never used that platform as a way of marketing myself or to find work. It's just more about sort of telling people what we're doing. Is that just start as a general inquiry, like it would be if you were getting an email, like in say 15 years ago, off a website contact form? That just start, we've seen your work, we like that, would you be interested in working with us? Is that how it works?
So it's kind of like a mix of things now, because when I just use Behance and Instagram, but then I use Behance so everything I post in August per se, all the animations, I'll then chuck them in Behance as August typography, as like a project, post it out there. And because I've been featured a few times, have followers and stuff on it, it kind of picks up traction and people like it. And it's the same thing, where someone's liked something and it gets shared. And then, it's, I've got a website, but it's through Adobe Portfolio, so it's through Behance. So if someone emails me or goes on my website and says contact form, I'll just get like an email that says Adobe Portfolio inquiry. And then, it's from anybody saying, we've seen this, that, or this, or we've got a project that would be interested in you starting on. Most of the time it's like, can you sign an NDA, and we'll tell you what the project is. And then, it's good to go. Whereas quite a few other ones are through Instagram. So I'll get like a DM from someone or from like a brand. And it's like, we want to work with you. What's your email address? And it goes from there. And on Instagram, that Netflix job, I only got that because I was using hashtags on my Instagram posts. So I was tagging things with like lettering, typography. And because a few of them kept coming up, you know, because I was posting so much, I've kind of spamming this whole internet. Because they kept seeing the same kind of take on typography, then they contacted me through seeing my hashtag online, not particularly looking for my name, just looking for typography on Instagram. There's a few cool posts, who's made them, contact, DM, email, and the job flies.
Yeah, I think that goes to show that, with all due respect, not just to you, to everybody else, that, you know, whoever's working at these places pretty much probably doesn't know anybody's name.
No.
About finding something that fits them or new,
just mood boards and, you know, visual pieces of work that people like the look of. It's nothing to do with like, oh, that's Matt Voice's work. It's nothing like that at all. It's just, there's some cool type who's made that. Oh, let's hire him. It's what it's like every time.
And sadly, most of the DMs I seem to get through Instagram are trying to direct me to adult films at the minute.
I've got a lot of them.
Netflix that land in my inbox.
I've supposedly got like a sugar mummy on Instagram DMing me.
How do you stop that?
Spam. Oh, so much spam. That's the problem.
Every time I'm on my phone, my wife just seems to walk past as I'm looking at that.
The worst timing. It's just spam. I promise.
But so moving on to like the way that you think it's going, is it just to be a continual sort of looking to develop where you're at now, or do you have a bit more of an idea about where you're heading as a business, as a personal brand, all those things?
I mean, at the minute I'm just going to kind of keep going. Obviously there's just myself, but the way kind of things have been going, because I've basically had to say no to some things in the past, and then agencies have still taken on the jobs, but they've kind of done it how I would do it, but not necessarily in my eyes as well as I would have done it, and it's quite kind of obvious. So it's kind of like a bugbear it's kind of like my work, but it's not mine, and it looks kind of bad. So it's like a bad take on my stuff. So maybe, I don't know, maybe one day, I don't know. I'd have to get, whether it be like some sort of intern that I can kind of coach into doing type like I kind of do it, but have their own stylistic take in it as well. Maybe one day in the future, in a couple of years. It depends on how things go, but I mean, I don't know. A part of me is like these, because I do a lot of Instagram stickers, you know, these stickers, they've got a sell by date. They're going to stop happening at some point. So I'm just going to keep trying to sort of explore new type styles, learn some new stuff, things that, you know, can be used for like bigger things. Like a dream job for me is like doing like a film intro title, or like a credit sequence, you know, with typography that's in a film, anything like that. I'd love to get into like the film industry and do type for like films and things like that. So you know, I'm trying to sort of worm my way in there, and I don't know, just keep creating stuff that hope it catches the eyes of people, and if not, then I don't know, I'm just going to keep bashing stuff out. And I mean, work keeps coming in. I don't know how it does. It just keeps happening. I don't really have like a calendar as such, or like a proper sort of planning system. I don't know. It just happens.
I never thought about that. I suppose in theory, in that respect, you're like an artist, aren't you? Where you're the original creator. And that's there's apparently 50 people that just paint coloured dots everywhere, because it just tells them to follow a template, which could be, I suppose, quite soul destroying. So in theory, if you add other people in, you can't, maybe, I suppose an animation typography sort of type studio would be interesting, but you can be diversifying away from who you are, as opposed to a traditional graphic design agency. You can bring in designers who just basically, you know, we all follow suit, don't we? It's quite hard.
I mean, I don't think I'll ever work in an agency as like a, you know, work for an agency full time again or anything like that. I just don't know. I don't think it would kind of work. And, you know, when I was kind of going through the stages of what I was going to do, if I was going to go freelance with analog, you know, there was career paths. You could be like towards the creative director, where you sort of manage people more, or the art director, where you become the best of your craft. So I think, you know, it wouldn't kind of work. So I don't know. I'm just going to keep running with it and just try and keep applying myself as an artist that does lettering, but, you know, a more specific style, and just see where it takes me, really. Keep open.
Yeah, and so far it feels like you've been quite at the forefront of a lot of things through Instagram and pages. You know, like I say, the stickers revolution. You know, the kinetic type. I suppose as long as you can keep at the head of the,
that's the thing.
You know, and constantly learn. no reason why that can't be transferred, and especially more to the video and animation side of things like Instagram. You know, I've read quite a bit about them sort of moving away quite heavily from, you know, photography or stills. So
Yeah.
you know, I suppose that evolution, that's what makes it interesting, isn't it, right?
Yeah,
I
definitely.
don't know where it might be tomorrow. So
Yeah, definitely.
well, I say this every single time, people get well fed up, but it's the time's up.
Yeah.
Skip by. I hope it was okay for you, Matt.
Definitely.
I really appreciate it. And I love the graphic you did for us earlier this week. I was amazed by the amount of you know, just views something like that gets, and
Yeah.
in my old man sort of type way. It's just mind blowing when you see it, and and then the interaction that we get from that, which is fantastic, from the conversations it starts and just continues to spread. It's not just about spamming people; it's about, you know, connecting people, isn't it?
Yeah, sharing the word.
Doing well. So yeah, I really appreciate that, and
No problem.
it's been great. I hope everybody that's tuned in has enjoyed it too, and we'll have to catch up again soon. And I hope you have a great weekend, peaceful-ish weekend.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Well, this is the abrupt bit where we end it for everybody. We'll be back again next week, and I'm sure we'll speak again soon, Matt. So take care and have a great weekend.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ta-da.
Bye.